Okay, to make our last cuts of the Carpenter's Wheel, we're going to be using fabric D, which for us is the light red fabric, and we need 24 number 2 triangles. That means we're going to need to cut 2 strips. We'll begin by removing our selvage. Again, we're cutting from the length of fabric. So we'll remove our selvage, and then we'll need to cut 2 strip units. To cut the strip units, once again, we'll be using the square to determine the width of our strip. And we'll cut 2 units. Remember, that's doubled over, so it's actually 4 strips of fabric. I'm going to lay the 4 strips of fabric on top of each other, square up an end, and then cut my half square units using the same method that I have previously. For the remainder of your cutting for this particular Carpenter Wheels quilt, you will just use traditional cutting methods. On the width of grain, you'll need to cut 4 1.5 inch strips for your first border. You'll need to cut 4 3-inch strips for your second border. And you'll need to cut 4 2.5 inch strips for your binding. Now you're ready to piece your blocks. Follow the pattern instructions on page 13 to chain piece 4 half square units using your 2 shades of blue fabric, your B and your C. Press the units towards the darker of the 2 fabrics, and then we'll move on to step 2. In her pattern, Marti describes a method where you slip a couple of stitches out to fan the seam to press your pinwheel. Try that method. If it works for you, that's great, and if it doesn't, just go ahead and press that seam open. On step 3, at the bottom of page 13, you'll notice it's also marked step 2, but I renumbered that step 3. Marti gives us the instructions for making the square and a square unit for this section of the Carpenter's Wheel. You'll make each unit putting the opposite sides together and follow the diagram. This was our B fabric. These 2 are both of our C fabrics, and this is our D fabric. You'll have to make sure that you put your fabric in the right place on all 4 of the squares, pressing to the outside to make your square and a square unit. When cutting your parallelograms, it's really important to make sure that you've got your direction, your point, in the right direction. You'll see here, this is my first cut that I made, and it was the wrong direction. The parallelograms actually need to point left, so I had to recut those. You'll follow the instructions on page 14 and 15 to piece 4 parallelogram blocks, 4 half square units that are attached to a light square, and 8 flying geese. Again, pay very close attention to the color on each side of your flying geese unit. Once you've made your flying geese, parallelograms, and half square units, go ahead and follow the instructions on pages 15 and 16 to complete the block and then add the borders. When you're finished, you'll have a wonderful 31-inch Carpenter's Wheel. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll be taking a break on our Marti and Me Club through the winter time, and we'll start again in April. I hope you'll join us then.